Now, you may have heard of the cost of living crisis, but have you heard of the cost of giving crisis? London is currently experiencing a drop-off from donations due to the financial squeeze on the capital. Food Bank Aid is helping 20,000 people a week in North London to keep dinner on the table. CEO Naomi Russell explains just who is in need.
People from all backgrounds, people who are using food banks for the first time because of the cost of living crisis. We've never seen so many people. The numbers are absolutely soaring.
Yeah, it certainly seems like they're getting bigger and bigger in terms of the numbers. And it's not just those people that are out of work either.
We've never seen so many working people as we see now. You know, typically people, teachers, nurses, policemen, all kinds of people who are actually in work, sometimes working two jobs, who are needing the support of food banks.
Well, what's going wrong here? I mean, somebody that's got two jobs surely shouldn't be in a situation where they need to come to a food bank.
I think that's where the cost of living crisis has really impacted people. The cost of food has gone up, the electricity, gas. I mean, I think all of us are seeing that impact in our shopping baskets for sure, and in our bills.
We've heard previously of, the cost of living crisis, but also last year in particular, this dilemma between decisions that people have to make, families have to make between eating and heating. Which one do they choose?
Well, that's why food banks are absolutely essential, so that they can have the ability to try to heat their houses as well. We've been getting, for example, much more call for things like tinned potatoes and instant match, because people don't want to use their fuel to cook potatoes, for example, or rice. So there's much more demand for microwave rice than there was previously.
And what other products are people coming to you and your services for?
Well, we like to fill the gaps. So we have all the basic products that one needs, all essential products, but we also fill what we would term as essential gaps, like cooking oil, spices, incontinence pads, toiletries, things that all of us use every single day and really are absolutely critical to our well-being.
We've heard of the cost of living crisis. This new phrase is the cost of giving crisis. Can you explain to our viewers what that means?
So the cost of giving crisis means that food banks themselves are really, really suffering because they're not getting donations that they would normally get, because people have had to tighten their belts. And so they are really down in their donations. And that's what we call the cost of giving crisis, because the spare money that people had, the few pounds they might have spent on giving food banks some essential foods, they just don't have that anymore.
But do food banks really need the likes of those few pounds here and there when we know that supermarkets have got shelves of food that is going to be surplus food that's going to be wasted?
Well, now that we don't have best before dates so much, the supermarkets don't have as much as they did, and food banks go through huge amounts of food, and they are totally reliant on people bringing in donations to them. And so that's been really halved. And as I say, the supermarkets not having as much surplus as they would have had previously.
There's definitely a stigma around food banks and going to food banks. Do you see that?
Yes, there's absolutely a stigma. I mean, if you want to go to a food bank, you probably have to queue for several hours in all weathers. It's not a pleasant experience. And people are having to do that for the first time. They probably never dreamt that they would need to use a food bank. So yes, there is a stigma. It's not as bad as it was, but I think the people going there feel quite humiliated.
You've mentioned a few times now that people are going for the first time. Why do you think it's now in particular?
I think people have used up their savings. Rents, fuel bills, food bills, everything is costing a lot more. And people just simply can't make ends meet more than they've ever done before. So people who are at the lower end of the earning capacity, it's very, very difficult for them. And they are having to make incredibly difficult choices.
Absolutely. And when they come to a food bank for the first time, as you say, some of them are feeling particularly humiliated. How can you sort of alleviate those sorts of feelings?
Well, the food bank managers and their wonderful teams are very, very sensitive to people coming and will often, take someone aside quietly, have a chat with them, find out actually what's going wrong. Is it purely, money, or are they having difficulty with a health issue or an unemployment issue, or it could be there's a myriad of reasons why somebody has to finally come to a food bank and get help. But often it can be a one-off thing, a washing machine needs repair and they just don't have the money for that, or a new tyre, millions of different things.
Just finally, I do want to ask about the impact this is all having on children. We know that 1 in 3 kids are in poverty in London, but that's a hugely disadvantaged for their lives in the future. What are the impacts here?
So the impacts, which I think people don't often realise, are actually huge. So children who don't have enough to eat are going to be more anxious. They're not going to be able to concentrate at school. Their behaviour probably won't be good and they'll get chastised for that. And so they're reaching their potential is they just don't have as good chance, and they will develop mental health problems because of that. There'll often be friction in the family that can lead to huge family tensions, even domestic abuse sometimes.
There you go. Food Bank Aid has a 36-hour fundraiser next week, hoping to raise £1 million. Now, do you struggle to get a good night's sleep? Well, new research